Hi guys, hi my subscribers. Today we continue discuss a language topic, and before we discuss English, Spanish, we spoke a little bit about German language. But I'm happy to discuss also Ukrainian language, since this language was for a long time suppressed by Russia Empire. And I strongly believe that it was only in eastern of Ukraine or in the central part of the Ukraine. But Ivan, he's from Chernivtsi. It's actually a west part from Ukraine, and his native and first language was Russian language. So I was surprised how it's happened. So yeah, today we will discuss about when and actually why Ivan decided to switch his language to Ukrainian, actually for his roots. And today we have Ivan. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to your show. It's great to be here. It's great to have an opportunity to talk, and especially about this topic. I find it's a very interesting topic, and a historic one, like you pointed out in the very beginning. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. Right now, my name is Ivan. I'm currently located in Calgary, Alberta. I've been here maybe about a year and a half so far. Before that, I moved from Ontario, where I spent maybe about 20 years or so, approximately. And so my family first moved from Ukraine, Chernihiv to Ukraine, moved to the United States. That's where we lived first. I think I moved when I was about 4 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe like four and a half. Not. It escapes my memory right now, but approximately I was that age, and we moved to Brooklyn, New York, where I went to school. I started kindergarten up to the fifth grade, and after that, I moved to Toronto, the Toronto area. We lived and grew up in Mississauga. Um, why Russian? So Russian was so a little bit of background. My family spoke both languages, both Russian and Ukrainian, and there was a little bit of Polish as well. But my dad preferred Russian because his grandfather preferred Russian, and it's kind of like a little bit of a tradition that passed on to our family because my mom preferred to speak Ukrainian, but my dad preferred Russian.
But your
And
dad, sorry for interrupting, but your dad, he is also from Chernivtsi. His root from Chernivtsi, or his root is from?
my dad, my oh no, actually, so my dad is from Kamenets, Podilsky,
Oh, it's
and my mom is from Chernivtsi.
why Russian language in this case?
Yeah, so like I said, my grandfather he was always spoke Russian at home, even though my grandmother preferred Ukrainian. And then the same thing happened with my family. My mother preferred Ukrainian, my dad preferred Russian, but my dad, I don't know, like my mom probably just like went with the flow, and she's like, okay, let's just speak Russian, and that was pretty much it. And my entire family, like I remember my uncle and everybody else was always in Russian. And there was just like Ukrainian once in a while. I think my mom, whenever she got angry, she would start yelling at me in Ukrainian. That was the only time that I remember. Um, and my grandmother would just like throw some Polish at me as well, like here Polish, throw into the mix. Um, and so actually interesting, like when I grew up in Brooklyn, there was the area that I grew up in, which was called Greenpoint. It was a big Polish community, and I always had Polish friends, and it was my parents had Polish friends, so I understand Polish like almost completely. Almost, I say almost because if it's somebody's talking too fast or using really complicated figures of speech, then probably I'll get lost. But like the basic info, maybe like the news, I'm fine. And I also worked at a Polish supermarket. It was a long time ago, and I got to practice it a little bit, with the customers and the team. So I know a little bit of that. But yeah, that's why like it's just something that um, I guess my family didn't really bother with making sure that I knew all the languages because nobody really taught me. So it was just me like hearing, my dad, my mom speak. I didn't really have like any lessons or anything. Like my parents, I just went to school. I
Mm-hmm.
mastered English, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else was kind of like in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't give it much thought or attention. It was just like something you grew up with, right? And yeah, I mean, like I guess I have to ask my mom, like, why not speak Ukrainian more? Why the Russian? And I guess it wasn't just like something important, maybe at the time. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
important because my parents knew both languages, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they were busy, they were working, new country and everything, right? They just moved, so I don't think the language thing was a priority.
Yeah,
And
yeah. In that
so
time, yeah.
maybe they figured that I just grow up and maybe learn it somehow, but I didn't. Nobody ever taught me anything or anything like that. I just started, and then once we moved, it's for a long while I just knew like some basic Russian. Like I didn't really know it. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know the alphabet. I didn't know how to read, write, or anything. It's just like whatever my parents said, like a few words, and kind of I could get the gist of what they were talking about. But if I remember when I was a kid, they were just like started speaking some slang or something like that. I remember asking my dad one time. I'm like, Dad, so do I know Russian? And I was just a little kid, and then he's like, No, you don't know Russian. I'm like, Why? Well, because if I start talking about something with your mom here and saying some stuff, you won't understand the word that I'm saying. I'm like, that's cool. Okay, can you show me? I want to listen. He started saying some stuff, and I didn't get it because he was probably using some slang that I was a kid, I didn't know. Um, so I remember that. And then my dad had this like little quirk. He was not bad like or anything. I don't want to I don't want to say like he's bad. It was great, but he had this little personality thing where he liked to throw a pun at me, and he would always kind of bring up the fact that like you don't know Russian or anything like that. So, uh, and I was really frustrated about that because like he didn't want to teach me, and he just kind of like to throw out those remarks. Oh, you don't know our language. I'm like, I don't know your language. I don't know Russian because nobody's teaching me. So uh, that was when I was a kid, but then I grew up, and I thought to myself, why not just master it? So that way, I know both languages, English and Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed some books that were lying around, and I just started, and I kind of knew the alphabet, but not entirely. So I had to do some reading, just kind of make sure to pronounce it, and then letter by letter, I had this like collection of stories and so on. So I just started reading that, and yeah, um, that was
You have
that was it.
actually really great writing skills, Ukrainian writing skills. When you told me your story, your childhood story, now I'm wondering how you, after all of this, you are able to write in Ukrainian because yes, Russian language was in your childhood and was actually with you during your whole life because I suppose that you spoke with your parents, continue spoke some about some things in Russian language. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
As I
yeah.
grew up, I got better, and obviously, I got more. I knew a lot more. Like I read a bunch of books, ton of books, watched a ton of movies, but that's far behind me. Like I'm not looking at any Russian content anymore,
What
even
has
though I know
changed?
it. The war,
Yeah, it's stupid,
the
stupid questions. Yes,
the war.
it's stupid, obvious questions. But but why I'm asking it
No,
because
no, no. Of course.
for
Like
me,
I just laughed because
yeah, no, I understand you completely understand because it's yeah, but I'm wondering because happened war, but a lot of people, even in Ukrainian, continue to use Russian language, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering, and I'm not again, I'm not speaking about some even Eastern region, because I know maybe yes for them it would be quite difficult, but even in my town Zhytomyr, where it's like we are not so Russian speaking city by the way, yeah, but some of them use Russian language since it's like always was like power language, more stronger language. When you speak Ukrainian, you are like, oh, stupid person from the village. And yes, and I remember, and I've actually grew up and my first years was in the village, and yes, when I moved from actually to Zhytomyr, yes, I also got such feelings that when I use Ukrainian, yes, it's obvious she's from village, stupid girl, something like this, yeah. So yeah, and I'm wondering why you used all your entire life Russian language, you like moved from Ukraine to Brooklyn, and currently you are in Canada. Why you decided to stop using Russian language in your life? Like what is obvious, but your feelings, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I still use it because I'm still learning. So sometimes Russian words pop out. You know, like when I'm not sure how to say something in Ukrainian, so it still comes out. And you know, if somebody wants to talk to me in Russian, obviously, like if I know it, like I can talk. Like I don't mind talking to people. You know, I don't mind using the language. It's not, but I just stopped reading Russian content, reading Russian news, reading Russian books when I used to before. And you know, some may say, you know, like that doesn't make sense because you know this language. Why not just keep it? And I mean, I'm keeping it. Like I know it. I'm pretty fluent, I believe so in it. So a little bit of a story. Like I used to, when I was growing up, I used to visit Ukraine often, and I would used to, travel around when I was a kid, and then like whenever I had a chance, like it wasn't every year, but you know, sometimes it would be like once every 2 or 3 years, or like 4 years, or something like that. But I think I on and off, maybe I've been 5 or 6 times, and at one point I even lived there for a year. That's where I met my wife. Um, so yeah, I lived and worked in Kiev for about a year. Yeah, so and that's why I can relate to what you said about if somebody is using Ukrainian, they were kind of looked down upon. And I always found it interesting whenever I was there during the year, why um, why Ukrainian wasn't the main language, like everywhere. I always found it interesting, like, and I always brought it up. Like me, for example, like those trips helped me learn some Ukrainian, like at the same time, because it wasn't always Russian everywhere. I went to different cities, Lvov, for example, and I spent some time there. And I mean, I always brought it up, like, but at the time, like, I was still, like, I wasn't too fluent. So, but I preferred to speak Russian. I found it helpful that everybody, like, you could speak to literally everybody in Russian, and it was normal and casual. But at the same time, I always brought it up, like, shouldn't it be Ukrainian everywhere, right? Because there's lots of everything's on TV is like mostly in Russian, Russian content. Everybody's like speaking Russian, and I found it weird, like, because it's Ukraine, right? The official language is Ukrainian, yet everybody's using another completely, if you consider it like it's a foreign language, right? But for some reason, it's used almost entirely across everywhere. But not everybody though. I still remember I found people like no Russian at all, and they didn't want to. Like in Lvov was the big one, and one of my best friends, and we met in university. He's from there, and I visited him like a few times, and we even had this like when we were in university when we first met, and then we continued the tradition where I was speaking Russian and he was speaking Ukrainian. And then at that point, like I could understand everything he was saying, but I didn't know it well enough to continue the conversation, and I always found myself feeling guilty about that. but now, like we're talking in Ukrainian finally. We're just like no more Russian. I'm like, that's it, it's done. um, uh, yeah, like I always found it. I always questioned it. I found it weird, um, and that shouldn't have been the case. Like in my opinion, like for example, like okay, like you're from the village. Okay, you're speaking the language of the country. You're speaking the language that everybody should be speaking, right? They
Yeah,
should
yeah.
love it. But for some reason, like I even met people, he's like, well, Ukrainian doesn't sound, like it sounds different. It doesn't sound as edgy or as good as Russian. I'm like, but like, not really. It's
Of
just
course,
I,
it's not
this
true. Yeah,
that's hard to
yeah,
understand that perspective, and I think Russian propaganda had a lot to do with it over the
yeah,
years.
for sure.
Um, Especially if you remember Yanukovych, and I was living there actually at the time,
Mm-hmm.
2013 to 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and every time I see the news, this guy is just like speaking Russian, or is just like
Oh,
it's just like screw it. He's like trying to say something in Ukrainian. He's like, and then I can see his face, and he's like, screw it. Just start talking Russian. I remember that. I'm like the president of the country. Come on, like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Weird time. Yes, it was really a weird time, and I'm so happy that we have started also to return to our roots, and a lot of people have started to speak Ukrainian. And to be honest, for me, it's also was easier to speak Russian language than Ukrainian language. And for a long time, I'm trying to define why actually it's happened. And I spoke with my sister, yes, and she mentioned that in our childhood we had a lot of Russian books. Not, I mean, like Dostoevsky, something like this, but actually all foreign books like Tom Sawyer, I don't know, something like this, Jack London.
Translation, right?
Yes,
Translation. Yeah.
translations, yes, was everything also was in Russian language. So yeah, and when you read a lot, of course, I don't know, it's actually a great skill also to speak, yes. So, and after that, my Russian language was much clearer than Ukrainian, because in Ukrainian language, I use a lot of Russism, a lot of Russian words, and maybe that, yes, also Zhytomyr is close to Belarusia, so we use maybe some mixed words, something like this.
Right.
Yes, and my Ukrainian wasn't clear language. But I'm not sure if I should tell this story, but I had some clients. He is originally also from Ukraine, from Mykolaiv, but he doesn't speak Ukrainian and he doesn't understand Ukrainian language at all.
Oh.
Yes, he also moved in here, when he was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh,
So,
okay. I thought he lived there his whole life and he didn't
yeah,
know Ukrainian.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
thought,
yeah.
okay, got it.
Yeah, and he's from Mykolaiv, so in that region, yeah, Ukrainian language like didn't exist. Maybe currently exists. Yeah. So yeah, and once I'm like finished to use my Russian language, and it was even a little bit early, February 24, because like before all of this full invasion war, I have started to get so much anxiety, so that really, and I work a little bit in Russian speaking environment, and during all of this time, I didn't get like any, all news where that Russia will invade to Ukraine, something like this, but when I work there, for me it was really difficult to work, and I didn't get any like support or something like this. So, and I was like, and I stopped using Russian language. And only in this case, when I use English, and in this case where I could use Ukrainian, I used Ukrainian language. So yeah, and like I cut everything that connected with the Russian language. But I had like some meeting with this client. He's currently in lives in US. And for me it was so difficult to discuss something in English, because before I had a lot of meetings in English, and I don't know, something happened with my brain when I communicate a lot of in English. After some, I don't know, 2-3 hours, my brain has said, okay, I disagree with this. I don't want to speak in English. So yeah, sorry. And I feel that I cannot say like, and he asked, oh, maybe we will to discuss this in Russian language, and I said yes, you know, I feel badly, but you know, but he's from Ukraine, so maybe a little. But when we have started to speak in Russia, for him it was so difficult, because yes, maybe he used his Russian language in like an environment that doesn't connect with the work, yes, and I understood that I'm more easier use English language in work related things, because it was so I don't know. And after this we switched to English, and I understood that I have started to forget Russian language just for 2 years. And I was happy, actually. Yeah. How was 24 February for you, 2022?
It was, there was a lot of news before then that they were saying Russia's going to invade, right? And a lot of people didn't believe it. But I was the one. I remembered Crimea, like in 2014, and it wasn't too far fetched to believe that they would try it. So in the back of my mind, and then if you go back in history, right, it's not the first time
Yeah.
that they tried something or tried to take over, repress Ukraine, and so on. So it wasn't too far, but what was hard to believe, also in the back of the mind, that they would actually do it, considering that everybody already knew their plans, and it was kind of like, would they actually start a war in Europe? Would they be so crazy as to do it? So there was like opposing opinions, right? Your mixed feelings. You're thinking, yeah, they're probably crazy enough to do it, and then at the same time, they're probably not crazy enough to do it, to pull it off. Like, it's went both ways for me. So I was hoping that it wouldn't, and there was a lot of talk, like, why is the U.S. just kind of talking about it? Why are they, bringing it up? Like, don't do it, don't do it. And everybody was thinking at the time that would kind of, why are they doing this? Like, that would like maybe frustrate Russia or something like that, and have a negative impact. But I mean, maybe it was just like some political tactic to maybe like, I remember reading, let's out all their plans, and maybe in doing so that it would give them pause, and they'd stop to think about it and cancel. But anyway, like, I had some mixed feelings. I knew like before that they could do it. I was hoping not.
Did you monitor
Yeah,
the
I was
news?
watching the news. I was really big on Twitter. I was actually looking through just other people's accounts. Like, I put a filter, Ukraine, for example, and then I would just scroll through like whatever everybody was tweeting to get like the latest updates. And I remember I was scrolling, and then I could see like people reporting, they had like short videos uploaded on Twitter where there's like something in the, there's some noise, some shots, and then I realized that they're actually going to do it. So I messaged my friend in Kiev, telling him, "Yo, man, it's starting." I'm looking at Twitter here, and then I remember like a couple hours later, yeah, there was like, it was on the news that things have started. And yeah, it was stressful, because especially my wife, like, all her family is there, my grandparents are there, a lot of relatives are there, and relatives that I know really well, because I visited for quite some time, and I lived there for a little bit, so I made some friends. And it's not like it was, even though I left when I was little, it's not like it was completely foreign to me. I still feel like it's my homeland. I have that feeling. So yeah, I was worried about it. All I could do was just like message everyone. I
But you could
saw
believe in
that
it.
stuff. Sorry.
You could believe in it that like in our world, yes, someone I don't know will just launch some milestone to cities to people. Yes, it was I don't know, because for me I was so frustrated, and yes, I was in that situation. I lived in the time, but for me it was so frustrated to understand that it's possible. Is it possible? Just
Oh, for the war to start, like for the
yeah, yeah,
Russia to
yeah,
invade. Yeah.
yeah, and the way, because yes, there could be like something I don't know, maybe more invasion in some eastern region, but some
Right, right.
bomb
Maybe they'll
attack.
do the like they did in Donbass, like
Yeah,
originally in
yeah, yeah, yeah,
2014,
yeah,
where
yeah,
they
yeah,
took
yeah,
Crimea and then parts of Donbass
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
Luhansk,
yeah.
right? Um, that was actually like one of the reasons, like, because when I was living there back in 2014, I was considering maybe just staying and just living in Kiev.
Hmm.
But then after Russia invaded, I realized, you can't take that chance. So I mean, like, if you, because I was a big history guy, like I really loved history,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you look back, there's certain things that just repeat, and Russia is really big on not, like, they're really good at not developing anything new, like not coming up with anything innovative,
Mm.
just repeating over and over the same thing, and whenever it downsizes, right, it wants to grow back its territory, like it wants to, at the expense of everything, all its people and resources, and just like increase the territory. That's kind of like the main thing that, if you look back, that's the only thing that they're concerned with, nothing else. So, um, I mean, not that I was like really in depth and thinking about that at the time, but it was at the back of my head, and I was considering maybe staying because I really enjoyed it. But then that happened, and I thought, let's go to Canada. But I asked my wife. Obviously, it's not just my decision. Like, she wanted to go too, so that was also a deciding factor. Um, yeah, I mean, it definitely sucks. I can't imagine what everybody's going through at the time, like when everything started, and right now, of course, how.
Y- Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Our language topic, Ukrainian topics, like a little bit switch to this, to
Yep.
the full invasion topic. Yeah, but it's really connected. It's really connected because yes, it was hard to believe to everyone. I also in my environment, a lot of people said that it's not impossible. Really, it's not impossible that we will have this full invasion war,
It's just,
and
are they crazy enough to actually go through
yeah.
with it? That was the thing, right?
Yeah, and for me, I also said to myself, yes, it's impossible. But like my intuition, but I guess that I have a strong intuition because really I have started to feel this anxiety much earlier before February 2024. So yeah, and the biggest fear was that Zhytomyr could be occupied by Russia. It's because I also read this news that some Russians near this Belarusian border. Yes, it's close to Zhytomyr, and yes, for me it was I don't know. For me it was the biggest fear. And yeah, and my like these feelings that something bad could really happen, and I was I don't know, in my environment I guess I was one of the person who just, oh my gosh, something can happen, what we should do. Yes. And I also want to ask you: did you have actually some friends from Russia or some people who connect in some cases with Russia and who support Russia, for instance, in your environment?
No, no,
No.
nobody from my family or relatives, um, except for one of my friends. his they weren't married, but they were just like together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to name names, but
Yeah.
yeah, he lived like 20 years or something like that. But it's just like a common law thing. They weren't married. Um, but yeah, she was like pro Russia, pro Putin. I'm like, and he's telling me about it. I'm like, what the hell? How, she's like, the city is getting bombarded, people are getting
Mhm.
killed, and she's like pro Putin, and I'm like, what? They're not together anymore,
Yeah,
thankfully.
yeah,
Thankfully, but
yes.
yeah,
You
I
know,
just don't get it. I think she moved to Russia.
yeah, it's a great place for him in this case. Yes, the best place for him. Yeah, he
That's
shouldn't
the only
live
case that I
here.
can think of, but everybody else, they switched to Ukrainian, same like me, like they're
Mm.
keeping Russian to a minimum, and yeah.
You know, I believe, yes, unfortunately, I believe that in the beginning that some Russian people could say they are strong. No, we disagree with what has happened, what our government decided to do with Ukraine. And and I even search in some, like in Facebook, in Russian groups, and I found some like post only for one girl that she wrote in Germany, and she wrote like something, oh guys, yes, we understand that people who lives in Russia, they are not so they don't have a lot of freedom and they afraid to do something, but we live in a free country in Germany, and we can go outside, go on the street, and say that we disagree. And you know what was in comments? Like, I'm stupid. Yeah, so really stupid. For who we need to go on the street? For this Ukrainian Nazi? They need to die. And it was people from Germany. I
Yeah.
mean, not Germans. I mean Russian Germans. Yes, Russian Germans who lives, because in Germany there are a lot of Russians. I so like 5 million, something like this. Yes, and after that I okay.
Yeah, I read a lot of cases about that where
Mm-hmm.
they're either attacking somebody from Ukraine also directly, like it was I think there was somebody from Russia in Germany, and then she got sent back home, I think, after people saw the videos and everything of her harassing people from Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
refugees and so on, which is good that they did that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of more detailed analysis about why, and articles that I read about like why that's happening. But I think it just comes down to, like the psychology of the mentality of the people from there, and I think it's very different, and different for a lot of reasons. And it's not really the culture. It's not really a culture that um, rewards or fosters independent thinking, and that's what I think. Like like because I read a lot of Russian books and movies
Mm-hmm.
and so on, so I kind of get the mentality, like I understand it, but it's not mine. Like it's not something, not in the way that I think about things. But I believe that growing up there in Russia, which is something I don't want to imagine doing, but if you were to grow up there, it's like I said, the mentality is different. That there's no um, there's no independence. Like
Empathy.
there's no room for it. Yeah, empathy is something that is frowned upon. Like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good one. And so is like thinking for yourself, critically thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Trying something new, or there's like an environment where it rewards you for, not rewards, but maybe like just somewhere, like a place where if you have a different view, it's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can, like in the US, you have a different
Yeah.
view, sure, whatever, freedom of speech, say whatever you can, except like if you're not threatening to shoot a school or explode a bomb, then sure, go ahead, say whatever you want about the president, say whatever you want about what you think about certain policies, right? Nobody's going to do anything to you, because you can say what you want. That's what freedom of speech is about. You can have a conversation about anything that you want. And but I can't imagine it there, right? And I think a lot of, but growing up as well, growing up depending on like the family situation and the culture, and throw that combine out. I actually interesting. I read that in Russia there's like no, civic education, like about even like in the US and Canada where they teach you, oh, like if you have a concern, you just contact your MP, and or just write a letter, you sign a petition, stuff like that, right? And kind of be an active participant in your government in some way. You kind of if you can contribute, if you want to do more, it's harder, but it's certainly possible if you're motivated enough, right? And but like if there's issues, people come together, they petition local government, municipality, or provincial or federal government, or they protest, right? And well, that's a whole other thing here in Canada, right? There's issues with that, but not there, I believe. Like there's nothing like that there, and that's why people, they're moving to a different country. They're like in Germany, right? You think, okay, like you're here, it's a different country. Why are you, thinking about the greatness of Russia? Like, why is that? You should be thinking about like for yourself. Um, but apparently that's like the kind of related to the mob mentality. Like you're part of a mob. You think and you just like go along with it. I don't know, like, or you're scared for some reason they're gonna get you. I don't know, like you're living in Germany, they're gonna kill you or something for speaking out loud. I mean, come on, guys. Like, sure, if it's some high profile figure, obviously they're gonna throw him out a window or something. But if you're just like an average person and you move, then nobody cares what you're talking about in Germany, right? Um, yeah. So.
Yeah. So that their just decision is continue to support their government, and it's like doesn't mean in which country they live. So yep. So that is why I close this page and have started, and a lot of people actually have started only in some Ukrainian related things as you do. And you, for instance, you like completely cut your Russian, for instance, language. You have started to speak Ukrainian, and I also wanted to ask, maybe, okay, some people also want to speak Ukrainian, but they have they afraid that they will do some mistakes or something like this. What tips you can give them?
Yeah. One thing actually, though, I wanted to just kind of note, like if somebody wants to talk to me in Russian, that like I'm totally fine with it. It's not like, like if they don't know Ukrainian, for example, like they could be from Russia, they could be from Uzbekistan, or neighboring countries that still have some Russian speakers. Like for example, I have a neighbor here that they just know Russian, so that's fine. It's not like I'm like, no, I won't talk to you. Like if you're speaking Russian. Though there are exceptions, like if I know that like they're from Ukraine, and I talk to Russian, like they're talking Russian, okay, sure, that happens too. That's fine. Maybe they're in the process of transitioning and learning, but some people don't want to. Maybe they don't want to spend the time and effort, and they just want to stick to what they know. I mean, I get it too. I get that too. It's just that if somebody's speaking to me in Russian and I know that they're pro Russia and everything, no, definitely not. I'll just talk in English then, or Ukrainian, but not in Russian. Like in those cases, yeah, I want to make a point there. But I know, about tips. I mean, I don't have any tips that have been tested to make sure that they actually work, but knowing myself, because I have that background, but also I have my wife as a resource because she talks in Ukrainian all the time, and
He's
that's
from
really
Kiev.
helpful. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
she switched as well. Like we actually used to speak Russian to each other most of the time, and then she made a point also of switching to Ukrainian. So at home it's just Ukrainian, although I do make mistakes. So English or Ukrainian. So if I don't know something, I just say it in English. Like how do you say this? And then, in terms of tips, like I started to read some things. I would watch news in Ukrainian, read news in Ukrainian whenever I can. I picked up some books that I have when I have time, I just try to give it a read. Like there's a lot of literature out there, really great literature, and I don't have any recommendations off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure like if you look up something, you'll find a lot of great works, and something that will, and also modern works as well, that will catch your attention, capture your imagination. And I think that it's a, in terms of writing style, and I know it's really popular to think that there's no really good Ukrainian literature. Even I remember I was living there, like, are there any good Ukrainian books or authors that you recommend? And I couldn't always get and like you said, books are like mostly Russian dominated, right? There wasn't like a demand for maybe new authors, and that was rare, which has changed, which I find is really good. So you can find a lot more creativity, and that's something that I'm working on. Like I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing myself in my spare time, but one of my goals obviously is to read more, to watch more, but there isn't that much Ukrainian like especially like TV or movies and stuff that is just starting to pick up, right? So there's not a lot out there. You can still find some stuff, but I think in this case reading is the best way to go, and talking. I think having conversations is the best thing, because especially here in Calgary there's a big Ukrainian diaspora, and a lot of neighbors from Ukraine recently moved or have been here for a while, and I have some friends, and I just talk whenever I can in Ukrainian and try to practice and say stuff, and whenever I make a mistake, they understand because they know they're coming from a Russian background, as well. They know Russian, right? So totally understandable. Like, and I find that helpful. Having that. It's not like people are frowning upon you that like you're speaking bad Ukrainian. They recognize that you're trying, right? And I think under other people recognizing that somebody is just trying, and that's the first step to learning or mastering any language. And I think that understanding is really important. Like whenever you can see somebody, oh, okay, you're making mistakes, or pronunciation is off, but they're making an effort. And I think like in any country that you go to, if you do make an effort, I don't know about all countries, but I think like for the most part, I would imagine for the majority, if the people see you're making an effort, you're trying, that they appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And writing as well. I try to do any text messages or writing. I try to do it in Ukrainian, and obviously sometimes the autocorrect is a really big helpful feature, because sometimes I don't know I know the word, like I don't know how to spell it properly 100%, and then okay, I have that suggestion bar that pops up. Okay, this is the correct spelling, and then I'm reading. Yeah, that's the word I wanted to use. Click.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. It was really motivated. Your story was really motivated. I didn't know everything about your childhood, and for me, I was also wondering. And I guess it will be like really some extra motivations for people who decided to switch their language from from Russian to Ukrainian. So yeah, because it's so really hard. I know, especially when you live not in Ukraine, but yes. And I want also to add that, yes, every Ukrainian will support these efforts when you speak in Ukrainian. And yes, and then, as you mentioned, in Canada or any another speaking country, for instance, when I learned German and I was in Germany, a lot of people also support my some German skills. And the same, yes, with Ukrainians, that every Ukrainian will support. And and we want to motivate you guys, if you still speak Russian language, try to speak Ukrainian. Yes, it's like step by step. I know that for some people it could be like, oh, why, for what reason? But I don't know, at least this motivation that Russian used also this language issue, I can say, yes, that we want to protect our Russian speaking populations, yes, speaking people. We want to protect them. So yes, that is why we decided to kill all bad Ukrainians who speak Ukrainian Ukrainian,
Very
and Ukrainian.
logical. Very.
Yes. So only like I think even this I don't know statement could be could be a motivation to switch Russian language to Ukrainian. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, yeah, it's a beautiful language by itself. Like, it doesn't have to be like a lesser, looked upon as a lesser language, lesser than Russian. It's not. It's not. It's a separate, unique language. Obviously,
yeah,
there, there's some shared alphabet, right? There's a alphabet, but that doesn't define it. And I find that argument, we got to protect Russian speakers, so we got to invade and protect interests. That's just crap, right? Because it's like, in the U.S. there's a lot of Spanish speakers, so okay, Mexico is going to invade and protect all its
yeah,
Spanish speakers. Ideally, like, it's in a relatively free country, you can speak whatever language you want, right? Just as
yeah.
long, but the official language is, for example, still
Official
English,
language.
or
Yeah,
in Canada, English, French. You have the right to
yeah,
speak,
yeah,
access like any government services in both
yeah,
languages, and if you want to, I don't know, be on TV, an official
mm-hmm.
channel, or do a speech or something like that. Use those languages. But if in your free time, feel free to speak whatever you want. Learn any language, speak any language that you want. I know that there's this like certain discrimination as well, and it's like, for example, like some people hear you speaking another language and they're like, "Hey, speak English. You're like in Canada, or you're like in the U.S. You should speak English." No, like, I mean, there's a freedom of expression, and people, there's immigrants from different countries. They can speak
yeah,
whatever language they want between themselves. Um, but obviously, like, if you go to the store, or if you go somewhere and you're talking in a different language, they don't have to they don't have to know it, right? So there's
yeah.
no requirement there. But
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, thank you, Ivan. Thank you. It was really great motivations. I guess we need to talk a little bit more about this, but for our next episodes, because it's a lot of you just told a lot of different interesting stuff that also includes some history facts. So yeah, but for today, I guess we finish with this really strong motivations and tips from this Ivan. Just also wanted to mention that Ivan is a writer. He wrote some books. Maybe do you want like to say about these books,
oh yeah,
and
do we
we
have
will
some
add a
time?
link.
Just a little bit. I can. Yeah, we have some time. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So like when the war started, I had already some published word search books. And the concept behind it is like, if you're familiar with word searches, where you just have a list of words and you kind of cross them out, find them in a grid. So
My
my
profession, actually.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was my idea. I thought it was, in school you would have those kind of pop up, and you have those random word search books with newspapers and so on. I thought, when I was a kid, I found them interesting and fun. I'm hope I'm not the only one, but I thought it was a little boring, so I took that concept, and in my book, like, whenever you find all the words, you like, if you do a line or you circle the words, right, that you find, it creates a picture of an animal, like at the
Mm-hmm.
end, that you can color in if you want, or just keep it the way it is. But I thought it would be like, because you just find the words and that's it, I thought, so keep it a little bit interesting at the end, like the end result would kind of pop out. Oh, you found all the words, and here's kind of a little surprise, you get this animal here. So that's, I called it Malinia. So
Mm-hmm.
malunok, and linea, which is a line. So like a picture line, picture drawing, like, if however that would translate. But that was the idea behind it, and all the royalties that I got and get from the sales of those books on Amazon, I donate to various Ukrainian charities, and I've been doing that like since the war started. And I post like screenshots and updates on my site, like, okay, this much has been donated and so on,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep it transparent. And I post like a screenshot of the royalties and everything, and then I thought, that's not enough. Like, I thought maybe I got this idea because I've been writing poetry for a while, but I thought, maybe something dedicated to just the idea of Ukraine in general, and maybe have something about the war to say about that. There's a mix of different themes, but I came out with a book recently. It's a poetry collection. There's 89 poems, and I'm donating like every $2 of royalties from the sales of that book. And same thing, I post screenshots. I also reached out to some organizations there, some charities, and I asked them, what can I do to make things a little more transparent? Because people might be hesitant to think like, okay, is this guy really going to donate? And I do understand that nobody knows me, right? So, and I'm not a charity or anything like that. So I did get in touch. I'm just waiting to hear back to see like maybe I could be like a partner or something like that, affiliated, so that way there's more trust if anybody wants to buy it, or just buy it. I mean, if you're interested in giving it a read, yeah.
In Amazon, yeah,
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. Yep.
Yeah. We will add a link for this in a comment. So yes, guys, if you like to read something, and of course, if you want to support Ukraine in this way also, because there are a lot of different ways, we will put a link in the comments. Yes, and you could also support the island. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Island, and have a great day.
Thank you.